Welcome to Let's Be Perfectly Queer,
a queer podcast creating space to talk about all things queer.
My name is Archie.
And I'm Katie.
And we are your hosts.
Questions of how you identify, seeking answers to clarify. Whether you're queen
or somewhere in between, let's be perfectly queer.
And what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the history of the word queer.
Yes, so we're doing another small talk. I know we've kind of briefly touched on this before, but we're just going into a little bit more detail about the history of the actual word.
And with it being Pride Month, it is very topical and everyone should just know a little bit more about it.
Exactly. But before we get into that, how about I tell you where we have some new listeners?
Yeah, do it.
You do love this part.
I do. I always love it.
We have new listeners in Davis, Illinois, Hamburg in Hamburg, Arlington, Virginia. So we had that last time, I think, as well. So there's a new listener there as well.
Yeah.
And Richmond, North Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
I
also loved how you said Illinois rather than Illinois.
I know.
It's so beautiful.
It's the way I read things.
I know. It's because you read phonetically and a lot of things in the English language aren't made for that.
As soon as I said it, apologies to anybody from Illinois, I knew it and I was like, oh, God damn it. But I didn't want to say it again.
Yeah, no, fair.
Yeah. And just before we get into the episode, I'm sure that you've seen it and it's been everywhere. JoJo Siwa and Hughes.
Oh.
And also we're going to have a quick chat about Fletcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, so JoJo and Hughes, what's your thoughts? How are you feeling about that?
I think that it's really messy.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of different facets to it. It's always going to be really difficult and people are always going to be, in essence, it's quite divisive.
Yes.
In the fact that when you've got somebody who's queer JoJo Siwa's queer, they've said that
prior to going into the Big Brother house, they were openly and identified as a lesbian.
Yes. Yeah. Which is, it's hard at the moment because I'm like, I want to be respectful of whatever they identify themselves as. And at the moment they seem to be very much in a transitional phase of whatever queer means to them, which I understand. And I'm there supporting a queer person, supporting another queer person.
Yeah.
I think that's great. On the flip side to it, I don't agree what they did with their ex-partner.
Agreed. So everybody is allowed to, explore their gender and explore their queer identity. And on the Big Brother series, they did say that they now felt more queer and more maybe possibly towards the non-binary, etc. You are allowed to have your sexuality change and evolve and it's fluid. But I just don't think that JoJo went about it the right way.
Well, in essence, they cheated.
Yeah, they cheated.
They emotionally cheated.
Yeah. There was some stuff that definitely crossed the line and I'd say it went beyond emotional.
Yeah.
And so I think, look, all for JoJo finding themselves exploring, but to go on to something that is, it's national TV and to cheat, I just don't think it's the right way because then they are also giving people who are bisexual who already have so much stigma a bad name.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny though? Because I have been listening to a lot of different social media outlets for this and a lot of different podcasts. And no one has actually said that JoJo's cheated, even though if this was a heterosexual couple and you had one of them doing the same things that JoJo has done to Kath with Chris, I think 100% it would have been like they're cheating.
Yes.
But because it's a queer relationship and I feel like even in this society, people don't take queer relationships seriously, that it hasn't been branded that, which really fucks me off.
Yes.
Because, sorry, you were about to say something.
So basically, I've seen this even in the comments, people are like, oh, but she found herself, she's found a guy, the right guy. And so it's gone back to the kind of the patriarchal society of she'll find a guy. You know what I mean? And so without realizing it, JoJo has actually created and actually caused a lot more harm to the queer community by following a trope. And people in the comments, especially on TikTok, on Instagram, are all like, oh, let her be. She's found a guy. She's doing great. But when people are like, but she cheated, they're allowing the excuse of because she was dating someone who was non-binary, that it was okay then because she cheated with a man. Yeah. And so I'm finding that quite toxic and I'm not enjoying the conversations and that kind of stuff around it, especially with the climate of what's going on in the world at the moment. And having that, it's just not a great look. And so I was all for JoJo when she's like, oh, she's with an Australian, incredible, that kind of thing. Then to do this.
I think JoJo just needs to go and find themselves. I think that's what they need to do. And I think that whatever journey they go on, that's fine.
Yes.
Like we were saying. But I think that the way they've gone about it is so fucking horrible because the way, I mean, there's so many different facets to it. And when you start unpacking, hearing what Kath Ebbs has to say about it and their part of the story, it doesn't paint JoJo in a really good light. But I think that the reason that we see the whole story is we understand queer relationships being real relationships. Whereas other people, like we're saying, they don't see that. They're just like, oh, it's just a placeholder. It's not a fucking placeholder. Everyone's got emotions here. Not one relationship is better than another relationship. But I can tell you how she started this relationship with Chris, which is a toxic relationship, to say the less. She's like, what, 21?
22.
22?
She's 22, yes.
And he's like, what, mid-30s?
31 or 32.
Still.
And you bring up a really good point. So a lot of people in the comments are like, you know, Kath's making a big deal about it and they're being very dramatic. You know, they're 27 and they were with JoJo's 22. But then when people bring up, but Chris is 31 or 32, people go silent. So they're okay when there's an age gap when it's a guy, but when it's not a guy, there's a big deal about it. They use that one in the arguments, you know, Kath's acting like a child and when, you know, there's such a big age gap, but then there's an even bigger age gap between JoJo and Chris.
But if you even look at the way that JoJo and Chris, their dynamic, there's definitely a power dynamic there. Yes. If you look at JoJo Siwa and Kath Ebbs, they were a lot more in an even playing field. Like they seem to, even though it sounds like JoJo Siwa allegedly love bombed Kath, and their relationship potentially might have been quite toxic on behalf of JoJo. I really think JoJo needs to sort her shit out because it sounds like she's one of those child stars who's warping out of the way.
And she just needs some time, or I'm not sure exactly if they've changed their pronouns yet, but JoJo needs some time to figure out who they are, away from the limelight, away from social media, and take some time for themselves.
Because I reckon this is my prediction.
Yeah.
I think that JoJo there's a lot of fan hype about what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of relationships that have happened in Big Brother because you're so separate from everybody else and you create these tight-knit bonds. It's almost like trauma bonding in a way, but you create these tight-knit bonds and they seem so intense and they last for very short periods of time because then you realize and unpack what it means. And even though that relationship might have worked in Big Brother house, it's not going to work in real life. Yeah. I can understand her seeking solace because of how horrible Mickey Rourke was. And Chris kind of seemed to be the only, and this is understanding, I haven't watched all of Big Brother UK because that's not my cup of tea, but it seems that Chris did stand up to Mickey and was trying to diffuse as well as support JoJo in that sense. So I can understand there's that white knight, he saved me kind of complex. I get that, but that's not transferable to real life.
And, you know, because you are stuck in a bubble and then you've got all the pressures of the outside world and everything else and they will play an impact. And look, we can't really tell what's going to happen in their relationship or not, but I just think it's just sad JoJo has done this because, you know, yes, they're allowed to have their own journey, but their actions will impact what happens with the queer community.
Yeah, will do. Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, apart from it being Chris and all that kind of stuff, do you think this would have been as big of a story if JoJo had another relationship with somebody part of the queer community?
No, it probably would have been 5 minutes. Like, oh, JoJo's cheated again, you know, because it's not the first time.
Oh, really?
Well, apparently. I'm not a big JoJo fan. Sorry, JoJo. I only see little snippets and apparently, you know, it's not the first time that they have cheated.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, something to keep our eye on. But it is a little bit sad, and it's sad for JoJo because JoJo is allowed to explore themselves, but it's also sad for the queer community and how JoJo cheated on national TV and the world is kind of normalised it and said it's okay.
I wonder if there's an ulterior motive from Chris as well, because nobody really knows who Chris is. Yeah. And JoJo's had a bit of a bandwagon ever since she did that weird Kiss makeup and was
the
like...
Karma song.
And the Karma song and the I'm the first gay pop. Oh, God, some good moments there.
Look, and that has been speculation that, you know, this could be a PR relationship.
Yeah.
But again, like the only people who really know are them. They're sharing a lot of like cutesy little things and whatnot, but who really knows?
JoJo really needs to go to therapy. I really hope they do because like being on Dance Moms, it appears to be such a difficult transition from when you're in the spotlight as a child to when you're growing up and trying to figure out who you are without, well, still with people telling you who you are and having contracts in which you have to have a certain persona. So I understand that's all very difficult, but I think that even with them being queer, like it was such a great opportunity to just be be a really great showcase for the queer community. Yeah, I don't mean to put all the pressure on them, but it could have been a real great situation to be like, oh, they're queer, look how fabulous they are and how well adapted. No, you can't.
So that's Watch This Space. And the other person that everyone's talking about at the moment is Fletcher. Katie doesn't really know who Fletcher was, so I had to kind of describe yesterday who Fletcher was briefly.
Yeah, and I still don't quite understand why they're such a big deal, but yeah.
Fletcher has always identified as bisexual, and that's great. But people are questioning the choice from herself, whether it be herself or management, to kind of rebrand during Pride Month.
Oh.
You know, if you look at Fletcher's Instagram, and I was saying the other day, all her stuff's gone. So it's been rebranded. Everything that was attached with her singing about girls, dating girls is gone.
Yeah, she just looks like a country music star.
Yeah. And so she's released a song, something about a boy. What's it called?
It was.
I Kissed a Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and look, it's a beautiful song, but wrong time. And the way that she's gone about it has actually angered a lot of people in the queer community. Yes, you can be bisexual. Yes, you can promote that kind of stuff. And it's not that she's released the song during Pride Month. Some people are a little bit iffy about that, but that's fine. It's more that they've decided to rebrand their whole look, take down everything that once showed how queer positive and girl loving they were, and it's all gone to, like, yes, they're in a relationship at the moment with the guy and they're very happy and that's great for them. But why erase such a large part of what got you to where you are?
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it, that whole rebranding? Because literally, I mean, this was the first time I heard about them.
Yeah.
And looking at, like I was saying, looking at their Instagram, it wasn't, I was like, well, what? There's nothing there that tells me that they're queer.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting about it. And yeah, I think it's a bit weird, isn't it? I wonder if there must be some other internal pressures that are happening from them. But I mean, quite disappointing.
Yeah, and there's, look, I'm not sure how true this is, but also people have said that both JoJo and Fletcher have started also going by their actual birth names more. So JoJo is Joelle. And
like there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship with a man. Sometimes it's quite difficult. Yeah. I mean, I've been in a situation before when I've been in a relationship with cis men where you kind of feel like you've lost a little bit of a part of yourself.
Yeah.
And that you almost have to prove you're bisexual sometimes. But I think that it's just, it's quite sad that that's all happened, and especially around Pride Month.
Yeah, I'm not sure how true it is about Joelle or about JoJo going by Joelle.
Yeah.
And then Fletcher has started signing off some of her posts Kari or Kerry, like Cari. So people have said it's almost like they've got with people who are cis men and gone back to their old patriarchal names.
Right.
Which is quite an interesting look if you're looking at the world at the moment. And so it's kind of almost like out of safety that they're reverting to a patriarchal version of themselves, which is very sad to see. And I'm not sure how true that is. And these are just all comments and questions that people have brought up. But it is sad to see them lose a large part of their identity. And, you know, maybe this is the new version of themselves and that's great. But it is such a shame that during Pride Month, Fletcher has made the decision to delete everything that once connected them to the queer community.
Why did they go with the name Fletcher? Is that their last name?
No idea, to be honest. Like, I only knew some of their songs and stuff.
That's so interesting. It's so funny. I would never in a million years guess JoJo Siwa's birth name is Joelle.
Yeah, so it's actually Joni Siwa.
Oh,
so
God.
That's why they go for JoJo.
What a name.
But anyway, so everyone's talking about it. So, of course, we had to talk about it too and give our two cents, you know. And like I said, everybody deserves to work out their own identity and their own sexuality. And I do realize that that is a journey and everyone is allowed to go on that journey. It's just how the two individuals who are such prevalent celebrities have gone about it in a harmful way for the queer community, in my opinion. If you think I'm completely wrong, that's fine. Share in the comments. But that's how I feel, and I think, Katie, you feel pretty similar?
Yeah, I think that no matter what is once you end up being a public figure, you have a certain indebtedness to be a role model, or understanding that you are going to be a role model and things that you do have greater effects. Which just sounds funny though, but it is. Yeah. It really is. Once you become that, people look to you for guidance in such ways, and your actions, though at one point in time may not have meant much, they do now.
Very true. Anyway, shall we get on with today's episode?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's jump into the history of the word queer.
So today on this episode, we're looking at a quick short history of the word queer. So queer is a word that holds a lot of history. For some, it's a slur. For others, it's an identity. But how did queer go from an insult to a banner of pride? We're going to break it down in today's episode.
That's a great start.
So the origins of the word queer. The word queer originally meant strange or peculiar and dates back to the 16th century. It came from the German word queer, which I don't know how to say, because you know me.
I'm not going to try.
Please don't. Meaning across or diagonal, literally describing something not straight. So that's where the word came from. By the late 19th century, queer was being used in a new way, as a slur for people who didn't fit into traditional gender or sexual norms.
It's funny because I can see the parallel.
Yeah.
As like, if you're looking at something that's irregular and you perceive, like, basically if you look at something that's irregular and then you see something that is not normal to you, you would therefore call it queer. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand the parallels there.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily good though. Especially when referring to people.
Right. And then by the early 1900s, queer was a common insult for LGBTQ plus people, implying deviance and disorder. It appeared in newspapers, court cases, and police reports as a way to shame and stigmatize.
Yeah.
Many closeted LGBTQ plus people lived in fear of being labelled queer, and it could mean losing jobs, family, or safety.
Do you know where this is what irritates me?
Yeah.
It's that innate fear-mongering that comes from political figures or larger societies telling you that something, because it's different, it's bad.
Yeah.
And then being like, well, we don't understand it. It must be bad. Therefore, anything that you don't understand is bad. And then putting that on human beings. Like,
and it's happening again with trans and the word transgender. And I'm actually going to go in a future episode about the myths of youth transgender surgeries and give you the facts. And that'll be coming up.
Love that. I love statistics.
You do. Let's move on to reclaiming the word queer. So the 1969 Stonewall riots marked the beginning of visible, radical LGBTQ plus activism. During the AIDS crisis of the 1980s and 90s, groups like ACT UP and Queer Nation embraced the word queer as a badge of honour. Their famous slogan, "We're here, we're queer, get used to it." This wasn't just about reclaiming language, it was about taking back power from those who tried to silence and shame them.
I love that. It's funny as soon as you say, "We're here, we're queer, get used to it," there's literally like a little gremlin in my brain that's like, "We're here, we're queer, get used to it."
Yeah.
Like exactly it's perfect. I love it.
Queer in the 21st century. Queer became an academic term, especially in queer theory, which explores sexuality and gender outside of binaries.
Oh, I didn't realize it turned into a scientific term.
Well, yeah, because, you know, things like we spoke about the queer temporality in queer time, so you're starting to see it in academic journals and...
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess queer is an umbrella term for understanding LGBTQIA. And seeing as we have reclaimed it, it doesn't sound like a necessarily bad thing.
Yeah.
The thing about scientific evidence, or like the thing about science is not based on bias. Science is based on facts. So it's just like if somebody uses a term, it's not meant as the previously stated. It's not meant in a malicious way. It's just meant in that term is being used. We're using this term so you understand what we're talking about.
Yep.
Which is why I love science.
Today, many people use queer as an inclusive identity label that doesn't conform to strict definitions. But not everyone is comfortable with the word. Some, especially older LGBTQ plus individuals, still remember it as a painful slur. So when we first came out with our podcast, we did get a bit of hate from some older LGBTQ plus individuals who did berate us on Facebook. Was it Facebook? I believe it was Facebook about us using the word queer. And then we had to be like, it's been reclaimed. And for us, the word is not derogatory and it's not a slur. But we do understand that it may be a slur for you. But we are using it in a way to empower us and our listeners and those that we surround ourselves with.
Yeah. It is an interesting conversation to have.
Yes.
Because when people come with that idea, it comes from a background of pain.
Yes.
From the experience that they've had with being called queer or having that defined in such a negative way.
Yeah.
And I understand it. I get it. But it doesn't, like, things in life aren't stagnant.
Nothing's black and white.
Yeah.
Right? Because you need to look at the connotations of how and what it's surrounded by. By us calling ourselves Let's Be Perfectly Queer, it's about bringing power to the word and about bringing knowledge and understanding about being queer and a part of the LGBTQ plus community. It's not a slur in that context, though we totally understand, and I totally understand how some older generations may still feel quite hurt and negative towards the word.
Yeah, completely. Like when we were looking at how we would have a platform for this podcast, there were certain platforms that wouldn't allow us to have the name that we did because of that. Because
it was considered a slur.
Yeah, completely. It would have just been like an AI bot that was just like flagging a term that shouldn't have been used in the metadata. And I get that. And in essence, that's actually a safety net to make sure that people aren't using it in a derogatory sense.
Yes, but I'm not going to call out what the podcast streaming platform was, but we could use it if we paid.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought that was a bit toxic.
I mean,
it's like, hey, you can't use the word queer if you don't pay for it.
Yeah.
That's why we're the Buzzsprout, because we didn't have to pay for it at the start, but we do now pay for it, so we get all the extra stuff. But it's just like, excuse me?
Yeah, that was a bit weird. But I do understand like the infrastructure of it. I get that.
Anyway, moving on. So where does that leave us? For some, queer is an empowering identity that breaks free from labels. For others, it's a reminder of past harm and a word they won't reclaim. The key, it's about respecting how people choose to identify and whether they use that word or whether they still feel that for them, they can't use it or they can't use it yet. So final thoughts. Language evolves, but the fight continues. Language is always changing.
Yep.
Words shift, meanings evolve, and communities decide what works for them. Queer is a word with a complicated, painful, and powerful past, but ultimately its meaning is what we make of it. So what do you think? Do you embrace the word queer or prefer other terms? Let us know in the comments. Get in touch and say, what words do you prefer?
Yeah. It's funny because I love the word queer because previously having to put a label on yourself, and like labels are really important for certain times in your life on how you want to define yourself.
Yeah.
But the problem I find is as soon as you say that you're in a different category, like as soon as you say, oh, I'm bisexual or I'm pansexual or I'm a lesbian or however you identify as gay, that puts a mental image into people's brain about what that means for them, because they're just like, oh, gay means this, or like, oh, lesbian means this. And unfortunately, the way that society is, it's generally a hypersexualization of such things. I mean, I won't lie. Yep, cool. I was just like, do I want to continue on this conversation? Turns out I am. But I won't lie. Like when I was younger and people would be like, oh yeah, I'm gay. Like the mental image does pop into my brain because that's how my brain works. It has that association. And so I quite like describing myself as queer, because then people don't have that. Like that doesn't pop into their brain about like, oh, it means you're a lesbian. Oh, you kissing a woman is now in my brain. It's just that overarching term. And then if I want to have a conversation more, like, gosh, imagine like in a different world, if I was dating people, being able to be like, oh yeah, I'm queer. And then I can evolve on that topic if I want to. But it also gives me the ability to not.
Yeah, exactly.
While still identifying myself as part of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Yeah.
I love it. How do you feel about queer?
Oh, I think it's great. And also because it gives me a safety blanket without saying I'm trans.
Yeah.
For some people. Some people, when I say I'm queer, they're very confused.
Fair. I can imagine people be like,
they're like, what?
Oh.
Yeah. But
how?
It gives
how
me
is one?
it gives me a safety blanket depending on who I'm surrounded by. Yeah.
Especially when you say you're queer and then your pronouns are he, him.
Yeah. It really confuses people.
And you've got a female presenting partner.
Yeah.
I feel like if anyone was part of the LGBTQIA plus community in that situation, I feel like it's that game of like guess who and be like, their pronouns are they, them.
Yeah. Well, because, I recently spoke about it with Jessica Lahore and we're talking about the fact that online there's been people attacking cis women when they're with a trans men. So literally, there's been a trans man and a cis woman with the hashtag transgender.
Yeah.
And then you've got people attacking the cis woman saying, oh, we can still see your penis. Because they don't realize that that's a trans man.
This is why I'm never going to do that. Everyone's going to be like, you do look great for a trans woman. I'll be like, this is unfortunately all natural. No, it's fair. But that's the thing. If people want to attack, they want to attack.
No matter
what. They're going
to
find something to hate about no matter what the situation is.
Correct.
And like often what we've found with trolls or when people have made derogatory comments about things is they've either not listened to the episode or not even looked at the picture, or like they don't, like it's just their internal dialogue that's getting spurted. It actually has nothing to do with what we're putting out there.
Anyway, that's the episode. A nice, quick, small talk because we've had a few long episodes recently. So bring back the little palate cleansers of the quick info. And don't forget now, we do have Patreon. And on our Patreon, you can support us for $1.50 a month. But I think that's US, so I'm not sure how much that correlates to Australian. So $1.50 a month, and you can support us, and we'll do shout-outs and little giveaways, and we'll chat to you guys about things on episodes and whatnot. And I also created a how to be an ally guide that you will be able to get for free as soon as you join our Patreon, or you can also download it for $3.
And like how to be an ally is actually good for everybody. It's not just good for people who have queer people in their lives, but it's also good for your organisation. It's good for your workplace. It's good for that random relative that you might have that is queer if you're not queer. It's good even if you're part of the queer community. It's good for that because we aren't always good allies to other people part of the queer community.
Yeah. And it's just a mini zine, so it's like a basic guide.
Is this the introduction into you breaking into the comic book world?
No. I'm a terrible drawer.
I blanked there for a second and I was just like, oh, I feel like this could be you.
No, I'm a terrible drawer. But thank you for listening to our little small talk. Don't forget, if you did like our episode, that you can rate, review and subscribe on all major platforms. And thank you so much.
And we'd love to hear from you always. And thanks for listening.
And until next time, I hope that we have been
perfectly queer.